Hello, I'm Ian Scales, you're watching TelecomTV, and today we're at the Internet of Healthcare event in London, where I'm talking to Charles Lowe. Charles is the MD of Digital Health and Care Alliance, and he's going to explain some of the digital and healthcare issues that have cropped up at this event. Charles, you're welcome, very welcome to TelecomTV.
Yeah.
So what is, can you explain the Digital Health and Care Alliance for me to start off?
Digital Health and Care Alliance is an organisation that was set up by Innovate UK as part of what was called the DALAS programme, and that stands for Demonstration of Assisted Living Lifestyles at Scale. When the programme ended in 2015, we were asked to keep the DALAS learning, which has been fantastic because they have deployed IT to healthcare IT to about 100,000 people in Scotland, in Liverpool and in various other parts of the country, and are starting to see now some very significant health benefits coming from that. We've got a little over 700 members now, most of whom are small and medium-sized enterprises working in the digital health and digital care arena. We've got a few commissioners as well, some academics and a few consultants. And
give me a flavour of what sort of applications you did with that first program that showed such good results.
The Liverpool project, which was called MI, was focused mainly on telehealth and on using telehealth to encourage people to look after themselves better and to monitor those people more closely. The end result is that they've been visiting their GPs much less, they've been going to hospital much less, and they're generally feeling much healthier.
And what was the data that they returned?
It was primarily vital signs data on. So, for example, if you've got heart failure, it would be blood pressure and it would be pulse rate, and also how you're feeling and weight as well. And from the combination of those, nurses and doctors were able to make some predictions of the likelihood of those people having what are called exacerbations, things that will send them into hospital, and they were therefore able to take the necessary avoidance action before those people went into hospital to stop them going to hospital.
And what did they have to do? Were they monitoring and returning the results themselves, or were they automatically being returned?
Well, they were every day. They were jumping on scales. They were putting a blood pressure monitor on their arms, and they were then sending that information, or the information was being sent essentially automatically back to base.
But it still required them to intervene with themselves.
It does, yes. And the holy grail in this area, of course, is when you can monitor people without needing to engage them in it at all. And I've seen some very interesting technologies recently. I was at the NHS Expo a couple of weeks ago, and there was someone there claiming that just by shining a light and a camera on someone's face, that they can measure their pulse rate, their respiration rate, and they claim their blood pressure.
And what did you think to that?
The first two I'm happy with. The third one, they were a little bit cagey about. So I'm sure it'll happen one of these days, but probably not quite yet.
Okay.
We shall see.
That's good. But as you know, I mean, the overall impression, as I was saying to you before, about this is so many areas that you could pursue, couldn't you, technologically, in this area? And it's to some extent it's a problem of scope, isn't it? Did you find that yourself when you were thinking about the next project to do?
Yes, you're absolutely right. But it's usually pretty obvious that some technology is. Firstly, it's got to appeal to the patient. So if a patient doesn't want to use something, if it's not desirable, they aren't going to want to use it anyway. So it has to pass that test in my mind. It also has to have some real genuine benefits. So it's not just a case of somebody feeling superior because they've run a little bit further than anybody else has. But it has to be somewhere around the bottom line, that there has to be a benefit to the health service and ideally a benefit to the patient too.
Yes, yes.
And when you start prioritising on that basis, it's not too difficult.
So the role of wearables is going to be very important going forward, do you think?
I think they're important, yes. I mean, I wear one and it's certainly changed a number of aspects of the way that I live. I sleep longer now, I do more exercise, because it's really nice to be able to monitor and see what you're actually doing. Okay. In the long run, I think that we'll see many wearables being implantables instead. There are still a number of technological problems with implanting things in, but for example, we're now starting to see blood glucose monitors that can be implanted for a significant period of time. There are already a number of cardiac devices which are routinely implanted. And of course, once it's implanted, then you can essentially forget about it completely. It sends the information automatically, and the first you know you've got problems is when your doctor rings up and says, I think you need to go a little bit carefully on this or that or the other, which might be will be an interesting issue to deal with when the time comes. And of course, once it's implanted, it's much easier to measure things like blood pressure.
Exactly, and of course you get a lot of aggregated data too about how people. Yeah. How diseases advance and so on, and the sky's the limit with it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can then use that data on an anonymised basis, and you can start learning lots of things about disease progression. You're absolutely right.
That's really interesting. And what sort of wearable have you got on at the moment, Charles?
I've got a Jawbone up, which is it's reasonably sophisticated. It measures my sleep in 3 different ways: deep sleep, light sleep, and REM sleep. It measures my pulse rate on a reasonably regular basis. It measures the number of steps that I take, and sure, it could do better, I'm sure, but it doesn't need charging for 5 or 6 days, so it's not something I need to spend too much time worrying about every day. It automatically transmits the information to my mobile phone, so. I think it's good, but Fitbit will be just as good, I think.
I was going to say, frankly. Other health devices are available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, but
absolutely.
Charles recommends that one's a good
one. No, I don't particularly recommend it. It just happened to be the one that I bought first, and because of portability of data, I just want to keep it because I've now got a reasonable amount of length time. And also, my 2 daughters have them too, and so we have duels with each other as to how many steps we can walk every day.
Yes, but as you said before, it's not about how many steps you do. What about, I mean, we've heard a lot about this idea of co-design. Explain that to my viewership.
Well, co-design is basically making sure that patients have a say in what you're going to do with them. And because it's the patient's health at the end of the day, and because patients will only do things that they want to do, if a commissioner or a clinician comes along and says, what I really want to do is to measure your heart rate by sticking something into your heart or something like that, then the patient's probably going to say, well, actually, no, I'm not sure I like that idea at all.
I've had a think.
And so, being more serious, it's working out the ideal compromise between what the clinicians and the technologists think they can do and what the patient will actually be prepared to do. I think the other really important point to make is that the technology itself doesn't deliver benefits. It only delivers benefits if you end up by doing things differently. So in my case, what this has done is it's actually made me sleep longer. It's made me take more exercise, and that has done me good. The Jawbone itself doesn't make me sleep more. I have to do that myself. And any app or any wearable will only deliver benefits if you change, supported by the technology.
Yes.
Technology does not result in money spouting out of the ground. It never has done, and it never will do.
Okay, that's a really good point. And I suppose it comes back to the idea that actually what's valuable here is the communication process between the patient and whoever is able to interpret the data better than they are.
Well, yes, but it's also something like this. I don't communicate any of the information I get from this to anybody else, except my daughters when we have duels with them. The benefit is that it encourages me to change the way that I live, because I can actually see the data.
Yes, but you're a doctor, you know what the data means. For most of us, we need it slightly interpreted, probably.
Well, I don't want to go too far down this route, but certainly the website does a pretty good job of interpreting for me.
Good. Well, that's what I mean. It's the website that really is the key to this, which is where we were headed with the conversation. Yeah. And given that that's the case, does this mean that there might be different actors involved in the value chain, as it were? So it may even be something like a Facebook, for instance, which is able to galvanise that kind of social interaction and put the data in the right place and get people assisting each other and all the rest of it. Do you see that we might see different actors emerging?
Yes, and yes. You're absolutely right. I mean, personally, I find it I find the idea of Facebook fairly horrifying, in that I only have close family as Facebook friends. But the idea of sort of broadcasting my fitness data to hundreds of people, I can't see how that could possibly benefit.
I took a wrong turn there. We certainly wouldn't have Facebook doing it, but we might have a digital site that kind of did the right thing and helped and assisted with the process.
Yeah.
So certainly not
absolutely
Facebook.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, look, Charles, thank you very much. That was great.
It's a pleasure.